What's going on, guys? Welcome to TA Outdoors, and you join me here in my 6x4 foot garden shed. This is Shed Sunday. You might be sitting there thinking, Mike, this is called TA Outdoors, what are you doing in your shed in your garden? No, I've not had an argument with the missus. This is a new series that I came up with, which I'm hoping to basically put out over the next at least 4 Sundays. And I'm just going to sit in my shed and talk to you guys about everything outdoors. We can talk bushcraft, we can talk shooting, hunting, fishing, camping, a load of other things, and we've also got some beer reviews, baby. Because I haven't had any feedback from you guys yet, because I've only just started this series, this is episode 1 of Shed Sunday, I've come up with the topic myself, and it's something that I've had a lot of questions lately and recently on my channel and on my Instagram page. All links are in the description, by the way. And that is how to do your first solo wild camp. Apologies for the traffic, that's one big lorry. Wild camping, yeah, it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's also can be quite intimidating, especially if you're either young or it's your first time, or even if you have anxiety issues. I know a lot of people out there do have anxiety issues, and it can be a huge thing. So hopefully I've got my little trusty piece of paper and I've written down some tips for you guys to try and get you out there in the outdoors, but in a safe and fun way. So my first tip for solo wild camping is actually don't wild camp for your first one, especially if you're on your own. I would say to begin with, try it in your garden. Your garden is probably one of the safest places for you to camp. By camping in your garden, what it does for you really is it gets you used to the general outdoors. It gets you used to the cooler temperatures, it gets you used to the outdoor noises. Even if you're in an urban environment, generally there'll be nature around you, birds and things like that. And it just gets you acclimatized to that feeling of being on your own and being outside. Yes, you might have people in the house, but that's okay. That will give you that safety factor and it helps build your confidence. At the end of the day, wild camping is all about confidence. Once you've got a few nights done, then I would suggest try and find a location, A, where you can get permission. I know it's not easy to wild camp, especially here in the UK. It's very hard to get permissions, but once you've found a permission or an area that lets you wild camp, I would suggest go to a location that is not far from your home. The reason being, if something goes wrong and you either get anxious or you get scared or you get worried, you're not that far to get back home. Which brings me on to my next point, which is safety. Make sure you have a good first aid kit on you. Make sure you have a good device that you can communicate with someone and that there's signal where you are. This is your first wild camp, remember, this is not wild camping in the wilderness. At the end of the day, make sure there's someone who can be at the end of the phone who will come and pick you up, whether that be your parents, your family members, your friends, who knows. If you've driven yourself, don't camp too far away from your car. Make sure you're close. The first night should be a safe and enjoyable one. You don't want to push yourself too hard. On to my second point, and that is... what is my second point? Time of the year. Time of the year. Spring, summer, early autumn. Probably the best times to wild camp for your first time. Honestly, guys, if you go out in the winter, especially here in the UK and where there's temperate climates and where the temperatures can drop quite drastically overnight, I wouldn't suggest doing it in the winter for your first time. You might love the idea of having a warm fire, and but it's a lot more complicated than that. You have to keep the fire going. You have to make sure you're using hard woods and things like that. So I would suggest definitely do it in summer if you can. I know you get the bugs, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But early spring and certainly late summer and into early autumn can be a really good time because the bugs go away a bit, and you can actually enjoy yourself, and the temperatures don't drop too much. Shelter. Okay, shelter. I would say use a tent for your first time wild camping, because as humans we like to feel safe. We like to feel almost enclosed a bit. We like walls around us. That's why our houses have walls to protect us. We used years and years ago in the primitive era, we used caves as natural shelter. We just like that security. It goes back to the primitive primal era, and it's just in our DNA from our ancestors. So I would say use a tent to begin with. You will feel much safer. You'll have this, you'll be sealed in. Yes, you've got the zip, but you'll be sealed in. You've got a bug net, you're protected from the bugs, and you'll just feel that little bit more confident, because then it's no different to being in your garden. You can picture it as being in your garden if you're that nervous. So I would definitely recommend a tent, and you don't necessarily have to have a really expensive tent. Most tents nowadays will, cheaper tents are actually fairly good. So I would suggest a tent, one man if you can, if you're going on your own, and weight is an issue, I suggest a one-man tent. If weight's not that much of an issue and you're not traveling far, go for a 2-man tent. Easy as that. You've got room to move around, you've got room to put your backpack in there, you've got room to sit up in and read or whatever you like to do. Lighting, yeah, good head torch. Good torch and head torch is really essential. Although you might think, oh, it's lovely and sunny in the day, this is great, it's a summer day, look how bright it is. It gets dark. It doesn't get as dark sometimes in the summer, but it still gets dark. So make sure you've got a good head torch with plenty of batteries, or a torch with plenty of batteries. You can also get lanterns, you know, little LED lanterns and things like that. I recommend battery operated ones to begin with, not flame ones, because you're a bit more reliant when you get to flames. If things can go wrong. So yeah, good lighting. Okay, onto clothing. If you're doing it in the spring, summer, early autumn, obviously you don't have to bring that much clothing with you. You don't have to wear that much clothing. What I would say is that what many people's mistake is on their first wild camp, mine was, I'm no exception to that, is that you go out on a really hot day and you think, oh, do you know what, it's so hot, I'm just going to go in a t-shirt tonight. And then the temperatures drop. There's no clouds in the sky. You can see the stars. It looks lovely. Oh, look at all the stars. If you can see the stars, it's generally going to get much colder than you think in the evening. So I would suggest make sure you bring either a wool thermal layer. You can get these base layers that are like merino wool. I've got one. And I just whack it on sometimes, just even at 10 o'clock at night, take your shirt off, put that on. I wouldn't recommend that in a really, really cold country. But I would say, yeah, bring warm clothing. Be prepared for it to drop at night, because definitely after about 10 o'clock, I find about 10 p.m, temperatures do start to plummet a bit. So be prepared for that. Have, in the summer, maybe have a hoodie or just something thick, a warmer jacket, build up your layers, then you'll be okay. If you're doing it in winter, if you choose to do it in winter, it gets dark about 4 p.m. over here in the UK. I would suggest bring some reading material in the sense of maybe like a bushcraft book or a wilderness skills book or a survival skills book, or even a wild edibles identification book or something, because you can practice bushcraft while you're out there. You can practice doing these skills, and it's always good to have a book, because then you can look around you and go, oh, there's some resources there that I can use that I've seen in this book. And it's just a good way, or there's a plant, let's see if I can find the idea of it in this book. It stimulates your brain and gets you thinking about nature and the outdoors. And it's honestly the most underrated thing is take a book with you. If you don't take a book with you, that's fine. Maybe take a little journal with you, because you can either document your trip, your first wild camp, in a diary form or a journal form, or you can draw pictures if you like sketching. You can sketch different wild edibles, different trees, things like that. Water. Bring more water than you need, especially on your first wild camp. There's nothing worse than being out of water, and know where there's a water source. If there's a water source there, you've got to also know that it's safe, and you've got to check that it's safe. Where's that water? If it rains, is that running off of a field? Is that picking up chemicals from the fields that the farmers sprayed? You've got to think about all these sort of things. So I recommend bringing your own water, and a sufficient amount enough water to get you through overnight. Those big camelback type bags are usually quite handy, the hydration bladders. If not, you've got a canteen, maybe bring 2 litres at least. It might sound like it's going to be really heavy, but that, at the end of the day, is what's going to keep you alive. Water is paramount. And onto gear. Let's just talk gear. Most people, including myself, will take way too much gear on your first solo wild camp. And that is completely okay, because, do you know why? You're planning for everything. You've seen videos out there, you've been inspired by other people, you're thinking, I'm going to go with everything I can so that nothing will go wrong. Honestly, something will generally go wrong. What you've got to do is make sure that whatever is going wrong is a minor thing and not a major thing. But what I would say is it is okay to take too much gear on your first overnighter, because it will make you feel more comfortable knowing that you've got that gear. But what you should do is, once you finish that first overnighter and then you go back, for your second one, write down, what did I not use in that first overnighter? What was not used? And then just don't put it in your backpack for the next trip, and see how you do. And eventually you'll scale it down and you'll get to a usable amount of gear. Obviously in winter you're going to need bigger backpacks to carry gear. You've got thicker sleeping bags and things like that. I would recommend if you're doing a winter one, a real good sleeping bag. Don't skimp on it, get a good one. In summer it doesn't matter too much. Mine's really, really cheap. Generally doesn't matter too much. If you're using a tent, which I highly recommend for your first wild camp, you generally will need a roll mat or some sort of insulating, self-inflating mattress, which are really, really useful because they can flat pack. Roll mats are a bit bulkier, but the self-inflating ones, or even the blow-up air mattresses, do help trap that heat and reflect that heat. But I'd also recommend, if you're doing a tarp shelter, and you can look at my top 5 tarp shelter video, there's a link in the description, check that out. If you're doing a tarp shelter, again, you're going to need to have that insulation on the ground, because if you ground sleep, even in the summer, your back will get cold. as well as gear, actually, another one is what a lot of people have asked, you know, do I need a knife, do I need an axe, do I need a saw? Most people imagine their first wild camp as a big, huge bushcraft camp where they're going to take axes. I'm going to take a, you know, a huge 24-inch axe, 2-pound head, you know, really nice knife, 4-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch knife, a big folding saw. It's okay to take a gas stove. Honestly, it's actually probably better on your first solo wild camp, I would say, to take a gas stove. The worst thing is to be so reliant on getting a fire going that you then don't get it going, you get anxious, you get worried, and it just ruins your night, and you then can't cook up your food. So I would recommend take a gas stove, take a lighter, take a backup lighter as well, just in case that one doesn't work, and just cook your food to begin with on a gas stove. It will get you used to it. You can still practice making a fire. You know, you can have your gas stove over there at one end of the camp, go and practice making the fire, and you can practice your fire lighting skills and collecting wood, processing wood and everything like that. But I would recommend just take your gas stove. No one's going to be angry at you. Oh, that's not bushcraft. Who cares? At the end of the day, you're camping, you're enjoying the outdoors. Take a gas stove for your first wild camp. But I would recommend, if you're going to do a knife and you're going to practice bushcraft, look up knife laws, obviously, in your area, laws and bylaws. Of what you're allowed to bring. If you're camping in a public place, you have to think about that sort of thing. If you're on private land, you have to still ask permission about that sort of thing. But I would say you don't need a huge expensive knife on your first solo wild camp. You do not. You can get away with the most basic, nice knife possible, even if it's £5 or $10. Just go with a cheap knife. Practice feather sticks. That's a really good thing to try and practice, and it's a key skill to have, I would say. Practice making tent stakes, so a pointy end on the end of a stick. Whittling it away, just practice that, that's good. And even the other end of that, just chamfering it or beveling it a bit so you can practice and make little tent pegs. It's a really good project to do. It's nice and simple. If you want a bit more advanced one, then try making your beak notches, your bail notches, you know, pot hanger notches in your Southern Sign Language. As for a saw, if you want to take a saw and you are having a fire, just a small folding hand saw. For axes, you really don't need an axe on your first solo wild camp. And you don't need to be chopping down the forest. You don't need to, because if you've got a gas stove, you've got that fuel supply, you've got that flame. But if you want to practice with an axe, I would recommend either doing a course first, a safety course, wearing the correct safety equipment if you can, but also trying it at home, you know, in a safe environment where you're not going to be so reliant on it. It's great having hatchets, it's great having axes. They are really nice to use, but they are dangerous. You don't need to be chopping down trees on your first wild camp. What your first wild camp is about is experiencing life in the outdoors, in the wild. Okay? You don't have to chop down trees, you don't have to have a fire. Yeah? You don't even have to go all night if you don't want to. You can, especially in the winter, is a good tip. You can go at about, it gets dark at about 4 p.m. Go at about 4 p.m. to 8, 9 p.m. Have someone pick you up. Get used to set your tent up. Just before dark, set your tent up. Go in your tent or your tarp shelter. Set it up. Cook something. Cook yourself some dinner. Maybe 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Cook some food up. Enjoy yourself. Relax. Gets to 9 o'clock. Go home. Then the next night you can maybe stay a bit later. Then maybe on the third time you go, you might do all night. Just a little tips, guys. I'm hoping that really helps you. Sorry if it's a bit of a long-winded video, but I hope maybe you guys could take something away from that. That's just things that I've picked up over the years where I've been wild camping. And yeah, hopefully you guys got something from that. On to the beer review. The beer review for the first episode of Shed Sunday is given to me by my good buddy Haze from Haze Outdoors. He's got a YouTube channel. He is the pro at beer reviews. I'll pop a link to his YouTube channel, a link to it in the video description below. And ironically, he's given me some beers. He's sent me some beers, and this one is called, this is so ironic, the Haze Maker. You can't really see the text, but the Haze Maker, and it's two guys boxing, which is awesome. And I think that's quite ironic because his YouTube channel is called Haze Outdoors, and he's given me a beer called Haze Maker. So, this is one of the Northern Monk patrons for the Northern Monk Patrons project. It's like a collaboration beer. It's up north, obviously, the Northern Monk. I'm a dirty southerner, but I have to admit they've got some great microbreweries up there, and a lot more access to craft beers I've found up north than down here, certainly. Anyway, it's got one of the old peels. It's a peel jobby. Peel, and there's loads of details on the brewery and everything like that. Cool logo of the old Northern Monk there. Go away, Laurie. We went for a dank undercut in the Whirlpool through Columbus and Simcoe, then went down with fruity hops in the Dry Hop, Galaxy, Centennial, Amarillo, and AU035. What the hell is that? An exciting new trial variety which contributes peach, passion fruit, and a ton of citrus. Much debate and some creative thinking made for a unique yeast pitch, and we had ourselves a beer which punches with the force of 3 heavyweight hops unleashed. Shed Sunday. Let me know what you guys think about the series. That's hoppy, man. That's really hoppy. Woo! I likey. That's a solid beer. Well done, Hazy boy. That is a solid beer. Absolutely love that. Proper fruity. Hoppy, fruity. This is 7.4%. Drink responsibly, people. Just thought I'd throw that in there as a disclaimer. Unbelievable. That's really nice. I like that. It's proper like summery hoppy beer. I can imagine drinking this on the beach in the sun. The ironic thing is it's raining outside. So, as I'm sipping on my beverage, you guys, I need your help. I'm going to give this Shed Sundays a go, this little series. I'm going to do 4 of them. This is the first one. What do you guys want to talk about? I've done this one on wild camping. You know, in the comments section below, let me know what you would like to talk about. I hopefully plan in the future as well to read out some mail. Going to set up a PO box. You guys can send me stuff. I'll hopefully read some of it out in here. We're going to definitely keep up with the beer reviews. And also, what do you want to know? Do you want to talk knives? Do you want to talk axes? Do you want to talk bushcraft shooting? Like, whatever. What do you want to talk about the outdoors? A new skull flag, which is actually, he's got fishing rods. It's 2 fishing rods going through his head, which I think is awesome. Got my Furhan lantern there. Yeah, it's basic. It's small, but it's cozy. Camp Update 11 has been epic to film. I've really enjoyed filming it. You guys have been so patient waiting for it. It's going to drop either next week or the week after. I'm not sure yet. I'll probably build it up on my Instagram. So follow me on my Instagram, TA Outdoor Official, and my Facebook, Totally Awesome Outdoors. That's coming. I've got I'm wild camping next week. Yeah, I'm doing a solo camp next week with something quite different as well, actually. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. And fishing and bushcraft is coming big time. One of my camps, I have permission to shoot. So we'll be doing some shooting stuff there as well. But Camp Update 11, honestly, camp looks ridiculous now. It looks absolutely insane. Some of you might think that by doing Shed Sundays, I'm now going to be really boring and just do videos in my shed every week. That is not true. I'm going to be trying to do Shed Sundays as well as a bushcraft or outdoor shooting, hunting, fishing video in a week. So almost 2 a week, but I can't promise you. Let's try out this Shed Sundays. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next week on Shed Sunday episode 2. That's a good beer. That's a wrap.